Welcome to another episode on the podcast. Today we're talking about February's transits, and February transits are going to be a little wild. So, before we really get into it, there's a few things that I want to, preface this conversation with. So, if you listen to the 2026 astrology forecast, that was the first episode of 2026 that I recorded with the lifestyle of the weird and interesting with Sheena and Crystal. We really went over like really pretty in depth all the transits of 2026. And when I first was learning or researching and just kind of like going through 2026, there was a lot that was really intense, and then there was also a lot that was really exciting. And so, just like everything, we hold duality. The law of polarity says that there are varying degrees. There are no opposites, they're just varying degrees in the same pole. And so, where there is really high highs, there is naturally going to be low lows. And the fine line and the place that we want to be is how we're navigating that and staying authentic and as neutral as we can be. And this is something I've really been reflecting within myself too. When, human design, I have an emotional authority. And the last episode with Vanessa and Naja, we really talked about kind of all the shifts that are coming, 2027 shifts in business as an entrepreneur and what that looks like and how we're relating to each other and all of the changes that are coming with this 2027 shift and the age of Aquarius and Pluto and Aquarius and everything that's happening this year, right? Like by the end of the year, we are going to have all of our outer planets, essentially Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto are all going to be either in fire or air, right? Fire and air do work together. And but this is really inspiration. This is quick. This is intellectual. This is communication. This is being loud, being vocal, right? Like you have to think too, like elementally, fire and air, when they go together, like yes, they can work because air sparks fire, right? Like we need air to keep a fire going, but too much air and the fire will go out of control, and not enough air, we can suck the fire out, right? We will distinguish. Distinguish, is that the word? We will distinguish. There's a word that's coming to me that is so basic that fire distinguisher. Yeah, I think so. Extinguisher. Fire distinguisher. Wow, why can I not remember that word? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. It will eliminate the fire. um, I've been inside for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah, this is going on 3 days with the ice storm. So we're a little bit having cabin fever right now. But anyway, so it will eliminate the fire if we don't have enough air. So again, they work well together, but it is really fast. It is a lot of movement. It can go out of control really easily, right? We have to like make sure we're giving it the right amount of air. And so when you think about this too collectively, especially as I'm recording this today, Neptune moved in to Aries. And so this is really like the spiritual warrior, but it's really understanding like what we are fighting for. We don't want to just like aimlessly be reactionary and impulsive and just like throwing our cards in every single basket. We want to like be more aligned. We want to take intentional action, which Mars moving through Capricorn was really teaching us intentional action. Venus, like this whole stellium that's been moving through Capricorn and now in Aquarius, was like in Capricorn was teaching us how to build, how to be slow, how to initiate in a really intentional way. And so hopefully that can carry on through this. But Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto are in this little mini triangle, right? Uranus is going to be in Gemini. Neptune is in Aries, and then Pluto is in Aquarius. So this is air and fire, which is really these three outer planets are sort of the pulse point of our collective frequency. So the shift that's happening with these outer planets is really the thing that's like kind of shifting our collective and what's happening. And so as we look around, I've been inside for the last 3 days and I don't usually watch the news, and it's not to be ignorant. It's not to know what's happening. Like I do see what's happening. I just actively choose not to consume the news specifically because I think there's propaganda. I think there's false narratives that we're to believe. And, the Kabbalion says all truths are but half truth. So regardless of what you see from anyone, Neptune is in gate 25 and will be in gate 25 for all this year. Gate 25 bridges Pisces and Aries. And the shadow of gate 25 is constriction. And so gate 25 is the love of the spirit. And so this is all about divine love. This is all about that place of like its core theme is love. And so when we talk about constriction, coming into our bodies, this is why I teach so much about embodiment. It's about coming inside and understanding what feels expansive to you and what feels restricting to you. And so, as a shadow of constriction within this gate, yes, it means so many things. But to me, there's this element of like really being aware of where you're feeling that in your body to be able to move from like false prophets, false narratives, and to come into your truth. And remember, we see life through our own lens, our own perspective, our own reality, our own truth. So I believe as long as we're coming from a place of love, and you can be on the front lines, you can have a really loud vocal voice and be coming from a place of love. And also understanding that I think there's no way to heal unless we understand that we're all doing what we feel is right, which doesn't make it right. But I think that if we can listen to each other, which is the thing that tends to be the hardest to do when we're super activated, I think that like genuinely listen to each other. And I don't see that happening very often. So, with all that being said, like I know me saying that isn't going to change the world, but that is the way that I have always sort of navigated tough times. It's like I want to learn all sides of it. Not that I agree with all sides of it, but on either side, there are truths in some way. I think that no matter, again, that law of polarity, no matter where you are on the pole, whatever degree, if you're on either of the extreme poles, you're missing the plot a little bit. This is not getting into a political conversation, but I kind of want to pave, I guess, or just dig into it a little bit as we talk about the astrology, because astrology is a map. It is not the object, right? I'm reading the book. I don't have it in front of me actually, but I think it's called Astrology as a Spiritual Path by Jim Scher. And he talks about this quote that was from, I don't remember who it was, because again, I don't have the book in front of me, but essentially, the map, when we have a map, right? It's not the actual road. It's not the actual terrain. It's not the actual texture. But if the map isn't accurate, we can't get to where we're going. So the map has to be accurate, right? When you pick up a map, you have confidence and that if you can know what street you're on, where you're going, you'll be able to find your way through the map. But the map isn't going to show you the potholes. The map isn't going to show you, the steep inclines of the mountain. The map isn't going to show you where the road's flooded. The map isn't going to show you where it's so hot that you might struggle if you don't stop and get some water, right? Like the map is the outline. And so when we think about astrology as it layers onto whether it's political events, world events, just your personal life, predictive astrology, which I've never really been into myself. I'm more into psychological astrology because I want to understand how you operate, how you think, how you work to help guide you and show you that there's all potentials. But however you're using astrology, remember that it's the map. It is an overview, it's potentials, it's possibilities. We all have, like I said, we all see our reality and craft our reality through the lens and perspective that we're viewing it from. And again, all truths are but half truths. When you understand these like core themes and laws of the universe, astrology is based on the law of correspondence, as above, so below, right? And so like kind of I think just anchoring into that a little bit as we're navigating the year, because before January, I decided that I was going to be very specific, very intentional about what astrologers I was going to consume information from, because it's easy to go on and just find yourself feeling fear or being swayed this way or pulled this way. And there's so much noise. And the thing with astrology too, is that yes, there are core themes and archetypes held within astrology. And also each astrologer has its own interpretation based on their life experiences, based on the people they've learned from, right? Their clients, based on the charts they've looked at, based on their experiences. So it doesn't mean that what I say is going to be completely true for you. It's my truth, and I own that. And also, I don't know your truth without seeing your chart, without speaking to you, without understanding what's going on in your mind, right? Like there's so many nuances to it. So I want to say that as we really like talk more deeply about the transits this year and just like empower you as you're navigating listening to people and consuming information on social media, because yeah, there's just a lot, and there's a lot of AI now and all of the things. So okay, let's get into the astrology of February. With all of that being said, February is going to be a big month. It's going to be quick. It's going to be impactful. So we're already, it's actually crazy that it's already February, but we're already in this eclipse season, right? So we have our first eclipse on the 17th, which I'll get into when we get to that. But just to preface that by saying, like, we're in the eclipse window. So eclipse window opened January 17th, a month before, and it'll stay open for like a month after. And eclipses are kind of like 6 month cycles, right? And so this eclipse we're starting now, the eclipse is going to be in Aquarius. We're going to get to that because the nodes are going to switch to Aquarius this year. But we start the month off February 1st with our new moon, or sorry, our full moon in Leo. And this is happening in gate 33. Now, Leo is warm, it's generous, it's heart led, right? It is, in its shadow, it's attention seeking, but really it's ruled by the sun. So it's just naturally seen by others. A lot of Leo feel actually really uncomfortable with the attention, but it's like you can't help but get attention when you have really strong Leo energy. And so, being nurtured by being seen, being nurtured by being recognized, being nurtured by maybe showing up in a big way or just being creative, being playful. Leo rules the fifth house. So it is play, it is creativity, it is children, right? That arena of your life. And so this is also happening in gate 33, which is the gate of privacy. And this is very much about coming to we have to process and experience fully to move on to the next one. We can't, so the shadow here is forgetting. And why I bring this in when we think about what's happening in the world or like history or anything, like we can't forget. If we forget, we're going to repeat it. It's sort of like, Saturn in your chart, or, when you're trying to learn a lesson, there are going to be plenty of opportunities for you to learn that lesson until you learn it. Because if you don't learn the lesson, it's going to continue to show up, right? So if you forget the experience, if we forget the lessons of something, we're going to repeat it until we actually process it, move through and store it, and then move on to something with that now wisdom and knowledge. And so that's the energy of this gate, which I think is on point kind of to what we're experiencing. But that is the energy here, and it's going to be opposite the sun, which is what makes it a full moon, Venus and Mars. So we're bringing in our values, our morals, relationships, attraction, sexuality, where we're feeling energized, where we're moving on, right? Like what we want, what actions we want to take. So all that is happening on the 1st. And of course, there will be a full moon post on the Substack. So make sure to follow me on Substack, where I do full moon. If you subscribe, there's videos, lessons, reflections. I'm restructuring how I show up on Substack. So the Roof and Rebel podcast has now been moved over to Substack. So if you're considering that, that's all going to be housed in Substack now. So all of that is there. Let's see what is next. On the 3rd of February, Uranus stations direct. And if you are a fixed sign, late degree fixed sign, like thank goodness, because Uranus doesn't like to be in Taurus. We've been talking about this for a while. And it's officially finally going to be moving through these last degrees of Taurus. Now, the thing with Uranus is the Great Awakener. It's shock, it's truth, it's the electrical impulses in the body. So we might be feeling anxiety. If you're feeling anxiety, subscribe to the Substack, because I'm putting out EFT tapping. Like I'm really resourcing and supporting you in that way over there, because that's really important to me, because we need to be embodied. We need to know how to regulate our body, understand what's ours, understand what's not ours, right? And so regardless, find a way to ground yourself when Uranus stations direct, because it's always the retrograde movement, the point where it retrogrades and the point where it stations direct, that's sort of the most volatile, I guess is the word. And so, in Taurus, this is Earth, right? Uranus rules the sky, Taurus rules the earth. They don't like to be together. Taurus wants security, safety, really being grounded. It's very sensual. And Uranus is not those things. Uranus is unpredictable. It's freedom seeking. It's shock. It's great awakening. It's truth. And it might like zap something into you. But this whole retrograde cycle, when Uranus first moved through these degrees of Taurus, it was sort of like we had like a little inkling of something that we had never questioned before, maybe that now we're sort of questioning, right? It's like, why have I always blindly followed that rule or that tradition or that theory or whatever it is, right? And then as it retrograded back, my iPad is doing something funny. When it retrograded back over, now we're kind of seeing it more clearly. We're like, oh, okay, I see the truth of it now. And then now, as it's retrogrades forward again, now is a point where we can take action. We're not all going to take action and fully change our lives, right? We might have to learn the lesson a few more times, but we see our perspective has changed. We see things differently. And especially when Uranus moves into Gemini, which is happening in a few months. I can't remember exactly what date it is. I think it's April. Let's see. I think it's April that it goes in there. I have my little calendar in front of me so I can really quickly check. This is April. Let's see, Uranus. Yes, April 25th, Uranus moves back into Gemini. This is really going to be shifting the way that we see things because Gemini is the mind. And so just being aware of your opportunities to do something different now, whether or not you do something different, just have grace with yourself. Like it's all okay. Richard Rudd talks about this idea of allow, accept, and embrace, right? This is the way that we can come to the space of like divine love. And he talks about this in the gene keys, like the Venus sequence. And he also talks about this in Gate 25 when he writes about Gate 25. But it's like we have to allow space for all versions of ourselves, right? Once we allow all space for all versions of ourselves, our shadows, our things that we love about ourselves, right? We allow all those versions of self at the table, then we fully accept it all and we can embrace it, right? And that's when we really come from this place of love, this place of acceptance for like all sides of ourselves. So that's happening on the 3rd. On the 6th, Mercury moves into Pisces. I was just deciding how deep I was going to get into the transits, but for sure, make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I went through because I've had so much time. I went through and I recorded all of the transit reels that I'm going to put out. I pre-recorded them. Yay. I'm usually like on the fly, but I actually it feels good to know that I have all those pre-recorded. Anyway, besides the point. So go check those out. I'm going to just talk about like the major high level view on this episode. So on the 6th of February, Mercury moves in Pisces. Now, Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde in Pisces at 22 degrees of Pisces. And so just notice what's coming up now. It's going to enter its shadow phase February 11th. So we're still not quite in the shadow phase, but Mercury retrograding through water signs is intense, right? This is having us look at our emotional patternings, our old subconscious habits. And I've been talking about it. Mercury is the messenger of the gods, right? Mercury could transcend all the worlds. It was the only god that could do it. So it can go from the heavens to earth to the underworld. So in that sense, Mercury has the potential. Mercury meets you where you're at in your consciousness, in your journey, in your awareness. So if you're not at a place where you're willing to dive deep, Mercury will meet you there. If you're at a place where you're willing to go through your subconscious and really go into that like underworld type place, Mercury will take you there. So Mercury is really, again, meets you where you're at. It's a mirror for where you're at. And there's no good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. So Mercury through Pisces has the potential to take you deep into your patterns, your addictions, your mental health, right? Like things that we can't see. Pisces rules enemies, and I'm air quoting it if you can't see it. It rules enemies. And really, to me, this is like the enemy of the mind. The enemy of our self is our mind. That is our biggest hurdle in anything that we're trying to do. So as Mercury is retrograding here, things like that might come up. And so you might detach, you might numb out, you might, because that's very much what Pisces is. You might use escapist tendencies, and that's fine. If that's where you're at, that's where you're at. But also, there's the potential to go really deep here and to feel our emotions and fully move through it. So, just paying attention to what's happening. On the, let's see, I'm just trying to see what major ones we've got going on. Okay. So on the 10th, we have Venus moving into Pisces where it's going to meet Mercury. We just had a conjunction not long ago. And so that is, okay. So that's happening on the 10th. Venus and Pisces, values, morals, relationships, right? Venus and Aquarius is a little bit more detached. So although Aquarius is really about the collective and our friendships are like soul tribe type energy, which is where Venus probably was focusing its attention, it wasn't necessarily romantic relationships, right? I have Aquarius in my 7th house, which is kind of a disconnect because of that. Like Venus can be a little bit, Venus rules the 7th house, right? Venus rules Libra, which is the ruler of the 7th house. So Venus can be a little bit detached romantically when it comes to Aquarius energy. So now we're moving into Pisces, and now this is merging. We're merging our souls, like not necessarily sexuality, because Scorpio is like we're merging our physical bodies, right? It's really all that kind of stuff. Whereas like Pisces is like we're losing ourselves in other people, right? So how can we stay in our worth within that. And also, like, I think there's beauty in it too. So allow yourself to get lost in it, but don't um scratch that. I'm not going to say don't, just be aware, right? Because this can bring up addictive tendencies, whether it be sex, whether it be alcohol, whether it be drugs, whether it be codependence, right? I mean, this is a pattern as well. So just noticing what's happening there. Okay, on the 11th, we enter that shadow phase, that retrograde phase, Mercury, at 8 degrees and 29 minutes of Pisces. So if you journal, just notice what's coming up today. That's February 11th at 4:12 p.m. is when it enters its retrograde period. And then on the 13th, Saturn moves into Aries. So now this is like, we're starting to get closer to this like really massive, we've been talking about February for a while. And next year, February 2027, is huge. This is the 2027 shift that human design has been prophesying. And I can't remember exactly what day it is, but it's not that the day is going to happen and all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, everything's going to change. It is a gradual shift, but that is, anyway, that's next year. We'll get more into it as we get closer. So Saturn moves into Aries. So Saturn and Aries is very much like, whenever we have aspects between Saturn and Mars, it's like trying to drive on the highway with the parking brake on. These are both in traditional astrology known as malefic planets. So they're not super optimistic. Although I like to see, there's a book Liz Green wrote, and it's probably behind me somewhere, but it's Saturn, A New Look at an Old Devil. And I actually love this book. I can't find it. So Saturn, yeah. If you're watching, hopefully all my books don't fall down. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the book, Saturn, A New Look at an Old Devil. I love this one because it kind of reframes Saturn for us, because Saturn, yes, can be disciplinary and yes, can be challenging, but Saturn also holds so much wisdom and so much depth and so much potential. But it's slower to reach those lessons. This is why our Saturn return is so impactful, right? Because when we hit our Saturn return, we're faced with these lessons. We have to move through these lessons. And it's kind of like what you don't learn is really going to show up. What lessons you need to learn are really going to show up big time. So as Saturn moves through Aries, right, like we might be quick to defend ourselves. We might be quick to just be a little bit harsh with our words or take things personally. Like Saturn holds a lot of depth as well. And so, as we're going to get to in a few days, where is it? The 20th, Saturn and Neptune are conjunct, which we've been talking about. I'll talk about it then. But anyway, so that's happening with Saturn moving into Aries. So just being aware that now we're starting this, it's officially going to be in Aries for the next, Saturn stays in the sign for about 2 years. So it's going to be there on the 17th. So two really big things happen on the 17th. We have our first eclipse of the year in Aquarius happening at 6:01 a.m. at 28 degrees. Again, that 28-degree mark of Aquarius is our solar eclipse, our first eclipse of the year. And it is the first eclipse of eclipse season. And the second thing that's happening February 17th is we're officially moving into this year of the fire horse. So we've been in the year of the snake, the year of shedding, a 9-year, which is really about shedding, releasing. And I want to share, I'm part of JK Ultra, if you've heard of her. So her Substack is amazing. Highly recommend it. So she's doing this program, this like year-long program where she does a call a month. And it is called, let me remember it real quick, because I was doing the video yesterday. It is called Is Now Enough. And so it's really just anchoring us into the present moment, which I think is so powerful and so important. And I say this because of this like year of shedding. And this is something that I've really been asking myself over the last year. So is now enough, right? We want to be in the present moment. And I'm going to also say I have gate 23 in my conscious sun. So much of what I do is to distill complex ideas into easy, digestible, simple ways, right? And so that's kind of like always my challenge, to communicate in that way. And when I find myself over explaining or getting lost in tangents or whatever, then I'm like, okay, let's redirect because simple is best, right? So over the last year, as so much has been shedding away, so much has been moving away. I even just now there was something that I was expecting, right? Monetarily that I'm not getting for now another month. That kind of like in the moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I was depending on that. But then also I had to come back and be like, okay, is now enough? Like this moment I can look around and one moment. All right, slight interruption there, but we're back. Okay, so what was I saying? Simplicity. Oh, so looking around, and something that she said in the call that I was like, yes, that's so true, is like when you look around your room, and I'm looking at my bed right now, and I've got piles of jackets because I've been doing laundry and it's been freezing, and we've been taking walks outside. Actually, we took one walk outside. Who am I kidding? But we're going to walk outside today. So I'm like getting jackets ready for everybody. And, it's like when you look around, even if there's shit piled on your bed, or you just, my books are all leaning over here, or I know that there's dog hair all over the couch, like whatever, like you look around, can you just look around and be like, wow, like I literally co-created this life with God for a reason, maybe beyond me, but also just so that God can experience this through me. Like that's actually amazing. And the question that she asked, which I thought was so profound too, and it's so simple. It's not like anything like, oh my gosh, that's going to change my life. But it's like in those moments when, okay, I'm like, shit, I was really hoping to get that money this month because I had things planned and there were things that I wanted to do and bills that I wanted to pay, like whatever. Can I also be like, okay, so if nothing in my life changed, would I be okay? Like, honestly, would I be okay? And this is something that's really anchored me in over the last year where I'm like, okay, so many things have left my life. I have found myself in a position that easily could have, I don't want to say wrecked me, in the past would have made me spiral. But that's something I asked, like, okay, like literally in this moment right now, what do I need? In this moment, I have water in front of me. I'm warm. I'm recording a podcast episode, which I love, that lights me up. My kids are in the next room. Like, I'm not hungry. I'm my power is on. I'm in a warm house. Like, yeah, I'm good, right? I'm blessed. I'm fortunate. Like, I'm good. And the second question she asked, that if your question was, if your answer to the question, if nothing changed, would I be okay? And your answer was yes. Then she said, okay, so if everything changed, what would you be okay? And so it's really just an anchor point into the moment. And that's really what I was getting at as we're going through all of this. And so as we move into this year of the fire horse, it's going to be a little bit more fast movement, right? It's already felt pretty quick, in January. And I know last January was the whole thing of like, oh my gosh, it's January, it's January 500th, or there were jokes about that because last January felt like it was so long. This January is like flying by. I'm like, I can't even believe it's February. So this year has a lot of movement, right? This year is moving pretty quickly. And so those two things are happening on the 17th. So this is a really big day. It's also so the sun and the moon, the sun and the moon, a new moon is when the sun and the moon are conjunct in the sky. The sun and the moon are square to Uranus in this during this full moon. During this new moon, the sun and the moon are square to Uranus. This is bringing in some challenges around our freedom, around innovation, around seeing things differently. And of course, this is in Taurus. So it's like, how can you ground yourself and utilize like the challenges that are coming up? And there's also, no, not during this, during the full moon on February 1st, one thing that I wanted to say too was that, no, scratch that. That's not what I want to talk about. Okay. So yes. So during this full moon, during the new moon, wow, my words are jumbled. It's also in gate 30, which is the gate of clinging fire, the gate of desire. And this is really teaching us that 2 points here. There's nothing wrong with desire. Desire will drive us. The thing that becomes an issue with desire when we're constantly chasing every single desire that runs through us, then we begin to just constantly chase the high. We keep chasing the dopamine. We keep chasing the hit. And what happens when that we can never be fully satisfied when we're constantly chasing desire. So there's nothing wrong with desire in itself. It's that we need to sometimes just watch it, just witness it. Like, okay, like this is a silly one, maybe a small one, but yesterday I'm not drinking right now, and I've been in the house for 3 days, and I have like a little bottle of champagne in my fridge, and I love champagne, like it's like my favorite. And I sat there yesterday and I thought about it for a minute. I was like, I'm kind of bored. I could totally be content drinking this champagne right now. And the desire was there, but I also told myself like, I'm not going to drink right now. And so I was really tempted to, but if I gave in to every desire that I had, like that's where the lesson is, right? And the second thing is to release expectation, because when we have an expectation of something, that's when we crash, right? When the expectation is not met. And I'm so familiar with this gate. This is in my unconscious sun. So this gate gets me all the time. I constantly find myself cycling through this one. It's a really challenging gate for me. And so that's kind of like the energy here. And then on the 18th, the sun moves into Pisces. So dreamy, psychic, intuitive, otherworldly Pisces, right? This is the ruler of the 12th house. It's ruled by Neptune. And so as we move through Pisces, I always notice I have Pisces in my eighth house. So it's a little bit deeper, darker, occult like stuff. But I always notice my bad habits. I'm air quoting my bad habits coming up while the sun moves through Pisces. So it's just shining a light on this area of your chart. So where is that for you in your chart? And then on the 20th, the thing we've been talking about for a while, the better part of a year, if not more. I mean, this is like part of a bigger story. But the sun conjuncts, no, the sun doesn't conjunct anything. Saturn and Neptune conjunct at 0 degrees and 45 minutes of Aries. This is the 0 degree of Aries, the absolute initiating point in the entire zodiac. Saturn and Neptune are sort of like opposite energies, right? Where Neptune is off in the clouds. It's a little delusional. It's a little illusional. It's the delulu, right? But it's really connected to spirit, excuse me, to divine. It goes with the flow. There's no force. There's surrender. There's sacrifice. Whereas Saturn is a little bit different, right? Saturn is really grounded into the 3D. Saturn is practical. Saturn is systems, structures. It's discipline. It's having an action plan. It's going forward with that, right? Like they're very different energy. And so this is, Chris Brennan was saying this is like reality distortion when these two come together, especially in Aries, because it's like Aries is the I am. Aries is moving forward. Aries is the first house, this is our physical body. So we might be having those questions of like, who am I? What am I fighting for? What do I stand for? What am I doing here? Right? Like, it's not like necessarily philosophical questions. I relate Aries to that because I have Aries in my ninth house, which is all about philosophy, education, religion, and things like that. But of course, it looks different depending on where this is in your chart. And that's what will be that's what area of your life will be activated with this conjunction. But just expect something, right? Like some sort of confusion, that reality distortion we're not quite seeing clearly. Not quite seeing clearly, but conjunctions, I used to always think conjunctions were a good thing. When I first learned astrology, I was like, oh, conjunctions are such a beautiful, they're actually the hardest aspect. Like it really depends on the sign, the planets, right? Like Venus and Neptune, that's a really beautiful conjunction. Venus and Mercury, that's a really beautiful conjunction. Neptune and Saturn, oh, Saturn and Uranus, like, right? Like Saturn and Pluto, these are like kind of challenging aspects. And so really like just learning from it, right? It doesn't have to mean anything beyond what you assign to it. So if you're feeling challenged, ask why, right? Like, and poke holes in it. If you feel like, oh my gosh, everything XYZ, whatever it is, nothing ever works out for me. Okay. If that's your current reality, can you tell me a time when shit did work out? Because I guarantee there were times when it did work out, right? So just like poking holes in your perspective if it's limiting, right? And even if it's like, we want to be in the now. We don't want to be too high. We don't want to be too low. We want to be in the now, right? And so just like considering that as you're like moving through this. Okay, so that was the 20th February. That's February 20th. And then Mercury session retrograde on the 26th of February. So again, we talked about that before. It's going to be conjunct Venus on the 27th of February. As it stations retrograde, it's going to be conjunct Venus. Again, we talked about this. So we had Venus and Mercury. Let me see. I'm pretty sure we just had them conjunct. Yeah, Venus and Mercury are conjunct on the 29th of January, are conjunct in Aquarius. And now they're going to be conjunct in Pisces. And so just this is a supportive aspect. Think about this is our values and how we're communicating that, how we're thinking about it, right? Like how are we showing up in our relationships? And this is Pisces. So this is like really beautiful and maybe a little delusional, right? Which I think is always a good thing, especially when it comes to like romance, like be a little bit delusional as long as you're catching red flags. Like if you're in like a healthy relationship, great, go be delusional, right? But like you might be missing red flags if you're not in that space or if you're like dating somebody. So, and with Mercury retrograde, we always say to you, like, don't make big decisions. Now, don't base your life on the astrology in that sense. Like I've heard people, and I can't remember who it was. There was an astrologer. Oh, I think it was Jana Romer. She was like, she bought a house during Mercury retrograde, and you're not supposed to do those things. So, of course, like trust yourself first and foremost. And even if we're bringing in human design here, like move through your strategy and authority. And if something feels like actually authentically aligned and feels good, go for it. But also, like if you're starting something new in relationships, and maybe like this conjunction is having you not see things quite clearly, like maybe just wait to make a decision on like commitment or not, right? So those are the major transits that are happening this month. There's a lot of squares that we'll get into like the more mundane transits over on social media because there are some. And so, but yeah, I think that anchoring in to yourself, trusting yourself, poking holes in limiting beliefs, being aware that there's a lot happening right now, keeping yourself grounded and just trusting in yourself. And I think that's a big theme right now. Follow me over on Instagram at Rochelle.Christian. TikTok is the same, ROCHELLE.CHRISTIANE. YouTube is the same, Substack is the same, stands everything is Rochelle.Christian. Anywhere you want to find me, you can click the link below too. All the links are below. So if you're looking, if you want to just click it, make it easy, just go down and click the links, follow me on the places, let me know what you thought. And I hope this was supportive. I will catch you next week.